artificial intelligence software. 고르니 아리랑 뉴스.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
The US are confident that North Korea understands Washington's demands on denuclearization. That's according to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who told a Senate committee that talks with North Korea are ongoing amid concerns that follow-up talks have yet to happen. Cha Sang-mi has more.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has stated that contacts with North Korea are ongoing, with him in the lead of the communication. However, during testimony to the Senate Appropriations Committee on Wednesday, Pompeo refused to give any details. He said he was not prepared to talk about internal discussions taking place with Pyongyang, calling it inappropriate and counterproductive, before adding that the North Koreans would be, quote, watching this hearing. The top U.S. diplomat said he was sure the regime knew the scope of the denuclearization the Trump administration is calling for.
The North Koreans understand the scope of the request that we're making with respect to denuclearization and the elements that would be required. We've been pretty unambiguous in our conversations about what we mean when we say complete denuclearization.
Pompeo also confirmed that no remains of U.S. soldiers killed during the Korean War have been handed over by the North, but said he was optimistic they will be in the not-too-distant future. Meanwhile, President Trump's National Security Advisor John Bolton, during his visit to Moscow on Wednesday, had more to add on North Korea's denuclearization. When asked whether Trump plans to attend the 4th Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, to which North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is invited, Bolton chose instead to express his anticipation for the regime to start giving up its nuclear weapons without delay.
I don't know the answer to that. It's possible, but I do expect that following on to the meeting in Singapore, that discussions with North Korea on the denuclearization of North Korea are going to proceed quickly. At least that's our hope and expectation.
Cha Sang-mi, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now, joining us in the studio today to further discuss the situation with North Korea is Professor Lee Shin-hwa from Korea University's Department of Political Science and International Relations. Professor Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, over the last few days, there have been some mixed messages coming out of the White House. Mike Pompeo has said that there is no timeline being given to North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons. But then just 2 weeks ago, he said that he expects North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons by 2020, the end of President Trump's first term. What should we make of these two statements?
Well, obviously, that contradicts what he said previously, right? Because they said they will continue to make progress, right? And also try to make a disarmament or denuclearization by the Trump's first term, that is current term, which will end January 2021. So obviously it was contradict that remark. And another thing is, I think that is also sharply contrasted with the U.S. senior defense officers talking about, they are going to present soon detailed timeline with a specific ask for North Korea. So that happens, right? And in my opinion, probably U.S. wish to be a bit cautious while they are very busy with making some detailed negotiation with North Korea now. Look, considering the 70-year of hostility or conflict between those two countries, it must be very, premature, right, or unpredictable to make a concrete agreement only 2 weeks after what we call a historic summit. But more importantly, I think I don't want to mention about CVID and VNI was missing in the statement,
Sure.
but because there was enough controversies over that. But no matter what we talk about here, if there's no clear statement or agreement at the top leaders level, it is extremely hard to make concrete, consistent the policy or a detailed roadmap at the working level dimension. So I think that is another reason for those U.S. State Secretary was going back and forth.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why follow-up talks seem to be delayed at the moment? I mean, they said right after the US-North Korea summit that follow-up talks would start in the next week. Mm-hmm. It's now been 2 weeks and there's still no sign of it. does that show that actually there's still a lot of differences that they need to discuss before they even sit down to meet?
I do believe so, because look, think about 3 months ago. We never expect anything can happen, right? Although our special envoy went to Washington and Trump making a very impromptu yes. I think the party who surprised most must have been North Korea itself. So although they've been preparing so many things, I think there are so much details about it. So probably that's why the Mr. Kim Young-chol, who's in charge of the negotiating from the north side, together with Choi Sun-hee, I think no matter what kind of grievances the Kim Jong-un might have, I don't think he can get rid of them because they have a so-called institutional memory. What I'm saying is Kim Young-chol has been engaging in this business since 1991 when they having a first problem in the beginning. But look what happened in South Korea and US. We kept changing like a negotiating partner depending on who is on the regime. But in the North Korea's case, they don't have to worry about it, right? So I think they are very strong or like attitude about what they want to achieve, which might be somewhat, or if not substantially, contradict with what the United States wants to have.
Despite this slow progress, perhaps towards
Economic, like loosening economic sanction or lifting economic sanction totally, right? So I think that is one of his tactic rather than strategy. Then what is the grand strategy? What is his end game plan? He's only early 30. So his end game plan is he wants to be a safe leader, sustainable leader of North Korea for another 50 years, right? So for that, I think he has like some grand plan. For that, he needs to please the domestic audience. That is economic, stability. For those economic stability, as we all know, North Korea has a long history of asking international community for economic aid or lifting or loosening economic sanction in exchange of either denuclearization or before the disarmament, right? So unless they having a significant concession from U.S. or international community, I still have suspicions about the Kim Jong-un and North Korea's real intention.
So you have suspicion about North Korea, but we need to keep pressure on North Korea. I feel like that's what you're trying to say. But right now, during a speech, especially at a rally a couple of days ago, President Trump commented. He said China might not help with the border situation with North Korea now. Now that seems to imply that recent reference to a step up in certain activities between China and North Korea.
Sure.
It's assumed that it means because China restarted flights between North Korea and Beijing, and they also started increasing tourism back into North Korea as well. Do you think? What do you think about the fact that Beijing is starting to seem to loosen up these sanctions, and how that could be dangerous to the situation with North Korea, and how that's detrimental to the U.S. plans and negotiations?
Well, I think Trump's warning toward China doesn't seem to be that effective because they have now big problems, independent of the North Korean issue. Their trade conflict is pretty significant, right? And this kind of a denuclearization process gave a good excuse for the U.S. For current burden sharing agreement has to be set